Yes everyone, welcome back. In today's News Daily video, learn the latest news involving probably the first potential imminent signing of the summer, and that is Inter Milan's Ivan Perisic. On top of that, we then travel to PSV Eindhoven to discuss the Ivorian midfield player in Sangare, who could be a replacement for Declan Rice. And of course, we have to discuss the latest news today involving Lukaku and his agent in Pastorello, and are we seeing more potential drama surfacing before our FA Cup final tomorrow? Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Get involved in the comments, share your thoughts and opinions behind all the stories, and to not waste any more time, let's start with the first story. So right now, let's start with the first story, and I want to discuss the news involving Pastorello and Lukaku first before moving on to the other two big stories that dropped today. To start with Pastorello first, we have to examine some of the quotes that came out surrounding him. Now I'm going to paraphrase them for you guys. You'll find the quotes up on screen. Essentially he does say that he's not the one to discuss technical choices being made, but there's obviously some problem between Lukaku and maybe the club at this point in time. You can't deny the fact that he is our leading goal scorer at the club, and even though he's not playing as many minutes, it still shows you the value and the ability that Lukaku does bring to a team. Of course, the situation right now is very delicate. Lukaku currently is focused solely on the FA Cup final and of course qualifying for the Champions League for next season as well too. However, his agent does drop that he has Inter fans in his heart. He's never hidden that, and he's well loved back at Anderlecht as well too, where potentially he could even end his career there with them. However, at this point in time, Chelsea have just defined the takeover of the club. He hasn't spoken to any of the new owners as well too. Ideally, he has to speak to them to, get an understanding of what the plan's going to be for next season. But at the same time, he did kind of just dismiss the talks involving interest from Inter Milan and AC Milan at this point in time by saying that we have to be patient and we have to wait. Well, it does seem like these earlier quotes from Pastorello did maybe, ignite a little bit of disturbance at the club. Tuchel responded to the quotes in his press conference before the Liverpool game as well too, basically saying that I think if he plans to talk with the owner, it is not his plan to talk with me. It's fair enough. Let's see if he gets a meeting. It's in his right. We will talk to anybody. We will evaluate any situation of any player, including Romelu. We will see what is going to happen and what the plans are. And then we end with Lukaku, and here's what he had to say on his social media. Never ever will I let someone speak for me. I kept my mouth shut and focused on helping the team and end the season in the best possible way. So if someone out there is trying to say something about me and the club, it's not in my name. So essentially all Lukaku is saying is that, listen, I didn't co-sign any of this. It's got nothing to do with me. This is all my agent's agency. No one is speaking for me at this point in time. And I feel that's for very fair reason. Of course, we can't forget the interview gate that came out during the turn of the new year. You guys know my thoughts and opinions. Yeah, of course, he did the wrong thing, but I didn't think it was that deep that it should have long-lasting ramifications for his Chelsea career, to keep things absolutely real with you guys again. So, it only makes sense that Lukaku's quite sensitive. You'd imagine that he's had to, really come back a lot from that. A lot of the outrage, a lot of the anger towards him. We know that he deleted his social media as well too, and, he wants to just clarify, I got nothing to do with this. I don't want to repeat of the nonsense that happened during the start of the season. So I understand it that way. Still, am I that mad at Pastorello? No. I mean, this is what agents do. Agents, and agents have their own agency. I mean, for example, Jorginho's agent consistently talks about a Serie A return. No one gets sensitive about that, nor should any of us do. In my personal opinion, it's up to him to say what he wants to say and how he wants to respond. I mean, it's not like players control how the agents run. They don't tell the agents, go here, talk to this club for me, keep your mouth shut, don't do this, don't do that. It doesn't work like that. So, I don't think players will always get the blame for these types of incidences. It's quite clear that Lukaku's starting to get back to a happier place, and I guess he doesn't want to jeopardize a single thing right now that he's got targets to achieve before the season ends. So that's my thoughts and opinions behind all of this. You guys share your thoughts and opinions too. How do you feel about these quotes? Do you feel like maybe it could be a potential sign of bad things to come? I don't know. Let us know in the comments. So right now we move on to one of the big stories that dropped today, and it dropped from Sports Media Set and from Tancredi Palmieri, where essentially they said that we are very close to the signing of Ivan Perisic. They state that an agreement has been formalized, even though no medical examinations have of course taken place at this point in time, because we can't officially sign players who are still sanctioned until of course the takeover is finally completed. That doesn't mean that we can't talk to people or talk to players, and of course someone like Ivan Perisic, whose contract is basically expiring in the summer. The guy is a free man, so we don't even have to talk to Inter Milan. We can talk directly straight to the player, and I think it's quite interesting that reports are suggesting that there's a big likelihood that Perisic could be a guy that's signed in the summer. Now, back in January, reports now come out saying that Tuchel was a big fan and was actually quite open to a potential move made for the player back then. Who knows what could have happened? It could have been very helpful for us when Ben Chilwell was out the team. And you know, Perisic had a great season last year at Inter Milan, much better than the previous season before that. I think in like 33 games, he's got something like, I think 7 goals and 6 assists. You know, 13 goal contributions from a wing-back position when, you know, you're playing with like, you know, Gosens might be playing one week. You know, there's constant like rotation in that position as well too. You know, I do think that is quite good form, quite good numbers. And he has been one of the most consistent players at Inter Milan this season. Still though, as the day did go on, we got some clarification, some confirmation that an agreement isn't as complete and finalized as the early reports during the day did suggest. Essentially, we got some more context involving Perisic and why he could be leaving Inter Milan. Basically, it comes down to the contracts. Now, Inter Milan have only offered him a 2-year deal worth 65k a week. Perisic, he wants a 3-year deal and he wants 100k a week, which makes sense because, you know, he was one of their best players last season. Again, do they have the money to be able to afford something like that, especially for a player that is 33 years old as well too? And yeah, of course, you know, older players these days, they have much longer shelf life. You know, they look after themselves. Sports science works in their favor. You know, tech players are much smarter too with how they look after their bodies. I don't think it's that deep, and we could easily have him for another 2 to 3 seasons at the same level. But you know, of course, it is quite interesting as well. I'd like to see how you could potentially get this deal done. When players are on free agents, you can really have a lot of flexibility with signing on fees. You could potentially give them a lower weekly wage, you give them a higher signing on fee to entice them to come. We could give them like a 2-year deal plus like a 1-year contract extension that does like automatically fall into place once certain clauses are met, which we have done quite a lot for players over this age as well too. But I guess ultimately with this news, it does tell us that back three is set to remain for the foreseeable future. And I guess maybe it's time for even myself as well too to just accept that at this point in time. And from that point of view, I do think that Perisic could be quite shrewd business in the sense that the quality is still there. The finances wouldn't be as much compared to having to, you know, buy like someone who's like 24, I guess, in the same position. But at the same time as well too, he is a player that could give you versatility in different positions. And I do feel like with a lot of players that I talk about in these News Daily videos, quite a few of them over the few years under Tuchel, there's been a habit of multifaceted players that we're linked with that we don't necessarily have in the squads. I think coaches, especially these days, they love players that can perform more. We've got glimpses of how he's used Mount and Kai and others, and I guess having more options like that in the squad is only going to help managers out like Tuchel even more. Yeah, I can't really complain too much about this deal. I mean, what does it say about Ian Maatsen? I mean, who knows? I mean, Perisic, I feel, you know, he could probably play on the right-hand side, even though he doesn't. He is a right-footed player at the end of the day. He is a left-footed player. No. He's actually a two-footed player. So ideally, I think he could make sense down either position. And that doesn't necessarily have to affect maybe like an Ian Maatsen, where we know that Dortmund are showing interest. We know from last season that Tuchel was very impressed by how he performed during pre-season. And I'd like to think that Ian would get at least an opportunity to show himself during pre-season before getting shipped out immediately. But I do think that having that right balance of like experience as well as youth is probably the best way to go. We probably can't afford to sign 2 wing backs in the team, but maybe to get a top quality short-term replacement for the next 2 seasons at least could then give more time potentially to Maatsen, or could introduce us to new like market possibilities. Me, for example, you know, I can accept that maybe Maatsen might go out on loan, play more consistently, and could be better for him. I think one player that's always fascinated me has been Renan Lodi from Atletico Madrid. The fact that he's constantly been in a squad where he's got so much competition on the left-hand side over the years. He's not like the guaranteed first choice player like that, which is surprising. I think that he's got a lot of ability, can play all down that left-hand side. And I think his contract is close to expiring. I don't think he has too many years left. So it does feel like you could do quite smart business there. And, you know, I like the idea maybe of like, you know, two guys and Ben, Renan Lodi, of course, competing for that spot. But I don't know. For me, we have to also realise the fact that when Ben does come back to the team, he's going to need some time to get back to his main level. Like a lot of times when players come back from long-term injuries, for like the first few months, everyone's saying they're crap, they're not good enough, have they fallen off, will they get back? And then after a while, when they're more confident in their body and fitter, then the football comes back. So, but maintaining a wing-back system, we are going to need to have quality instantly, and we can't afford to wait for Ben to just have the time to return. So in that sense, I think Perisic could be wise business, and ideally it allows us to have more flexibility and more maneuverability now when it comes to signing other players for other positions. So right now we end things with the final story, and it's time to talk about Ibrahima Sangare. Now I'm sure all you guys out there that are like religiously banging out FIFA, yes, I'm sure you probably have Sangare team in the season on your bench at this point in time. Mad stats, mad price. But today reports came out suggesting that we are turning our interest and paying attention towards him, and we're seeing him as potentially a replacement to Declan Rice. Now we know with Rice recently, West Ham offered him an 8-year deal worth $200,000 a week, as if this guy is gonna agree to signing any new contract at West Ham. He wants to go, but he's being held against his will. Basically, he's getting the hearts, which happens to quite a lot of footballers, to be honest. So it's only smart that our scouts, we're gonna look at a target list, a short list of options that can play in that DM position. Now, what I find really interesting about this story is that how many DMs recently have we been linked with? And these are like more traditional type of like defensive midfield players compared to like deep line playmakers who like Regista style, you know, anchors in midfield as well too. So what indication does that give us? Of course, I think these guys would have the ability to play in a midfield too as well too. However, it does feel like maybe their game is even better when it comes to just, you know, protecting a back four, marching a defense, and of course having the room to just like receive deep and progress the ball up the fields. So in that sense, I guess Sangare is a very smart player to scout. Naturally, the hype, his name has been growing. PSV did some very good business just a few seasons back, signing him for like, I think 10-9 mil from Toulouse at the time. Not very often that Dutch clubs spend that much money signing players, but I mean, PSV, they had a plan for him. They could see the potential. He's been called like a Yaya Toure regen, but I guess anytime you're Toure, you're always going to be Yaya Toure, even though he's completely different than him, to be honest. I'm interested about this news, but if I was to spend big, especially after finding out that we could be signing Perisic, it's going to give us even more freedom now to have more money to spend on bigger name profiles. I feel like a position like that, we can't play around, and it's about signing the very best we can if they're available. And if Rice and Tchouameni, the two, some of the best leading ones in Europe right now, it would be criminal not to sign them and watch these two players go to better clubs. I mean, come on, let's keep things real. But regardless, that's not me trying to disregard Sangare, not at all. He's talented. Of course, I can't give you like too much insight behind his game like I normally do with a lot of players, you guys. I'm not really watching the Dutch league like that, to be honest with you, and I've not been paying too much attention towards him, even though I do know that he has had a very strong season at PSV and has had a very strong performance too in the Europa Conference League this season as well too. What I know about this game is that this guy is an aerial beast. I mean, he wins a high amount of his duels, and over the seasons he has grown even more when it comes to leading with those defensive actions in the league. I think in the Eredivisie he was like ranked top 4 and was like far exceeding the league average at the time. These are the details you want to see. Sangare plays a lot as like a DM, or plays in the midfield too alongside the Mexican playmaker at PSV, Alvarez, Eric something, I can't remember at this point in time, you guys. But you know, that tells me instantly that this is a player that is comfortable receiving under pressure, which is very important because you need to evade the press. And you need to have midfield players that help you evade the first line of that press, and they need to be comfortable, man, having technical skills to be able to do that. And with Sangare, he definitely is a techie style football player, and he uses his strength well. Like, he's one of those guys that will get his body in front of the ball quite a lot of times, and by doing that, that just like creates more angles, you know, to help you make better decisions, move the ball away, and just frees up more space as well too. So on top of that type of defensive reading which keeps improving season after season, with the height, the physicality, and of course with the great defensive skills as well too. I think he's a very talented player. Be interested to see. I don't have too many strong thoughts and opinions on this story at all, but you know, Sangare, you know, he's been doing this thing over the seasons, had a massive season this year, one of the leading guys in midfield in Eredivisie, and just outstanding stats all round, surpassing what he was doing last season. So you guys, on that note, I'm going to wrap things up, keep things moving. Thank you for watching. I'm in EFC, this is Blue Lions TV. I'll catch you guys later with some more videos. Cool.